Okay, so picture this. It's January 1st, or, maybe just one of those Mondays where the guilt has finally hit a tipping point.
Oh, yeah.
And you decide, right, this is it. I am fixing my life. You set the alarm for 4 a.m. You go for a 10-mile run in the freezing rain.
You threw out every single thing in your pantry that brings you even a tiny bit of joy.
Exactly. And then you blend up this sludge of kale, ice, and just pure moral superiority. You drink it, you hate it, and you tell yourself, this is health.
And then, 3 days later? You're on the couch with a huge pizza, feeling like a complete failure, and just wondering why you have zero willpower.
Every single time.
Okay.
It's that cycle of penance and then binge. But what really struck me about the source material we're diving into today, this stack on the architecture of holistic well-being, is that it identifies that exact scenario not as a failure of character, but as a failure of design.
That's the core thesis, isn't it? We've culturally mixed up health with suffering.
Yeah.
We'll have this belief that if it doesn't hurt, or if it doesn't taste like, lawn clippings, it doesn't count. But the research we're looking at argues the exact opposite, that sustainability is actually a byproduct of enjoyment.
Which sounds like a paradox.
Okay.
Or maybe just wishful thinking. But the sources are saying it's actually biology. So the goal of this deep dive is to dismantle that kale sludge model and look at this idea of the virtuous cycle. It's about building a lifestyle where one good behavior just naturally leads to the next, instead of you white-knuckling your way through some regime you absolutely hate.
Exactly. It's moving from a mindset of restriction to one of systemic design. And to do that, the source material suggests we have to start where the friction is highest. They call it the modern dilemma, but let's be honest, it's the war for our sleep.
I think everyone listening can identify with the scenario the text lays out here. I mean, it hit a little too close to home for me. You have a job, maybe you're a teacher or you work in an office, and you need to be up at 7 a.m.
Sleep is critical.
It is.
Yeah.
But 11 p.m. rolls around, you're exhausted, and yet, there you are, just aggressively scrolling through social media.
Just doom scrolling, watching videos of people cleaning rugs or things being crushed by hydraulic presses.
It's mesmerizing. But usually, the narrative is all about discipline. Put the phone away, just go to sleep.
Right, as if it's that easy.
But the source material frames this so differently. They give it a name: revenge, bedtime procrastination. And they argue it's a physiological reaction to a lack of agency.
And that's the key insight. If your whole day belongs to your boss or your kids, that late night time is the only time that feels like it belongs to you.
You're stealing back your own time.
You are, but at the expense of your biology. The problem isn't the desire for downtime, it's the mechanism you're using to get it.
It's the screen itself. We all know about blue light, but I think we really underestimate how powerful that signal is.
We do. When you blast your eyes with blue light at midnight, you're shutting down melatonin, which is the hormone that signals sleep. But at the same time, the scrolling, that slot machine effect of what's next, is spiking your dopamine.
So you're basically telling your body it's daytime while also getting these little reward hits.
You're creating a state of being tired but wired.
Which explains why you can feel absolutely drained but just can't close your eyes. You're fighting your own body. So the solution here isn't just go to sleep. It's about changing the medium of that me time.
Correct. They call it the analog transition. You need a buffer zone. The suggestion is to swap the digital stimulation for, analog engagement. Reading a physical book is the top recommendation.
Because a book doesn't emit blue light, and it doesn't have an algorithm feeding you dopamine hits every 15 seconds. It's a slower process.
Precisely. It lets the brain downshift. But there's another tip in there that I found fascinating about the auditory environment. They suggest using brown noise or pink noise.
Okay, I've heard of white noise, that sort of static sound. But they're very specific here. Why the difference?
It's about physics, really, and how our brains process sound. White noise has equal intensity across all frequencies, which can sound a bit harsh. Pink and brown noise, they dampen those higher frequencies. Brown noise in particular is this low rumble.
Like a distant waterfall or heavy rain.
Yeah, or the hum of an airplane cabin. And the neurological benefit is this thing called stochastic resonance. Essentially, it gives your brain just enough sensory input to keep it from, ruminating on your to-do list.
So it creates a sonic boundary. It signals that you're safe.
Exactly. So you combine the brown noise with a physical book, you're still getting your leisure time, but you're lowering cortisol instead of spiking dopamine. You're working with your biology.
Which brings us to the next pillar. We've dealt with the sleep environment, but now we have to deal with the internal environment, the chatter. The source calls this mindfulness without the mysticism.
Which is a very important distinction to make.
I think it's crucial. I'll be honest, my relationship with meditation is complicated. I've tried it. I sit down, close my eyes, and my brain immediately starts making a grocery list or replaying an argument I had 5 years ago.
And your immediate reaction is, I'm failing at this.
Yes, I'm bad at this. I can't clear my mind.
And that feeling of failure is the single biggest barrier. The source is adamant about this. The goal is not to clear the mind. That's pretty much impossible. The brain produces thoughts. It's what it does.
So the grocery list is supposed to be there.
It's allowed to be there. The definition of mindfulness they offer is meta-awareness. It's the shift from being in the thought to seeing the thought.
The text uses a traffic metaphor for this that I found really helpful.
It's a great analogy. Imagine your thoughts are cars on a highway. Usually when we're stressed, we're in the traffic, we're driving the I'm angry at my boss car.
Honking at the I need to buy milk truck.
Right, you're swept up in it. Mindfulness is just the act of pulling over and sitting on the grass by the side of the road.
You still see the cars, you see anxiety drive by, you see hunger drive by, but you're not gripping the steering wheel.
Exactly, you just note it, oh, there's a worrying thought, and you let it pass. The actual exercise, the rep, isn't the silence. It's the moment you realize you've drifted back into traffic and you gently guide yourself back to the side of the road. That moment of return is the meditation.
That completely reframes it. It goes from being a spiritual test to just cognitive training. But what's the physiological payoff?
It reduces that fight or flight response. It creates a gap between stimulus and response. So when a stressful email comes in, you've trained your brain to pause for a second. You don't immediately flood your system with cortisol.
You create a buffer.
And that buffer prevents the chronic stress that leads to burnout.
So we've calibrated sleep, we've calmed the mind, now we have to address the body. And this is where the virtuous cycle really takes center stage.
This is my favorite part of the research. It starts by acknowledging the sedentary dilemma.
All right, the grading papers example, or really any desk job. You sit for 8-10 hours a day, you're mentally fried, physically stagnant. The absolute last thing you want to do is go to a gym and run on a treadmill staring at a wall.
It feels like a second job. And since you used all your willpower at your actual job, you skip the gym.
Enter the badminton principle.
Right. So the badminton principle comes from a case study about someone who hated exercise but loved playing badminton in college. The principle is simple. Find movement that's playful, but it goes deeper than just fun.
Because we're social creatures.
We are obligate social animals. The sources cite studies showing isolation is as big a health risk as smoking. But we often try to solve our problems in silos. We try to fix fitness alone, fix our mood alone.
But the virtuous cycle is when you bundle those needs together.
Exactly. When you join a badminton league or a hiking group, you're addressing the physical need for movement and the psychological need for connection at the same time.
And that changes the motivation completely.
It does. You might skip the treadmill because you're tired, but you are far less likely to skip seeing your friends. The social part becomes this positive reinforcement loop. You go for the people, and you get the fitness as a bonus.
And that's where the cycle kicks in.
That's it. Because you moved your body, you get deeper sleep. Because you slept better.
Your brain is refreshed. You have better emotional regulation the next day.
And round it goes. One good choice just feeds the next. It stops being a chore and becomes a current that pulls you along.
Okay. But there is one area where the friction feels less about willpower and more about money. Food. The source says healthy eating is economical, but I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
I walk into a nice grocery store and see a bag of granola for $14 or a tiny green juice for $10. It feels like I'm being lied to.
The cost myth is pervasive because the wellness industry is, well, an industry. It's selling products. The source is actually very critical of the whole superfood thing.
You mean I don't need goji berries from the Himalayas?
You emphatically do not. Superfood is largely a marketing term. The nutrient profile of a goji berry isn't that different from a blueberry, which you can buy frozen for a fraction of the price. Or cabbage. Cabbage is a superfood without a good PR team.
Cabbage needs a rebrand. So what does the economical version of this look like?
It looks like Whole Foods. The blue zones, where people live the longest, their diets are based on what you might call peasant foods. Lentils, beans, oats, seasonal vegetables, these are the cheapest things in the supermarket.
But the cost there isn't money, it's time. It takes time to soak beans, to chop vegetables.
It does, and the source acknowledges that. But this links back to mindfulness. They suggest reframing meal prep not as a chore, but as part of that analog transition. Chopping vegetables is a rhythmic, screen-free activity. It can be your decompression.
I can see that. But there's another layer here I found really interesting, which is the idea of satiety and mindful eating.
Yes, this is fascinating biology. We often eat while distracted, right? Scrolling on our phones, watching TV. The source calls this mindless eating. The problem is, the satiety signal, the message from your stomach to your brain saying I'm full, is delayed. It takes about 20 minutes.
So if you inhale a sandwich in 3 minutes while reading emails, you've missed the call.
You've completely missed the call. You overeat because your brain hasn't registered it yet, and it goes deeper. Digestion actually starts in the brain. The smell of food, the act of chewing, these trigger enzyme release.
If you're not paying attention, you're literally not digesting as well.
Correct. If you're stressed and distracted, your body diverts blood away from your gut. Mindful eating, slowing down, actually tasting the food, isn't just some nice idea. It puts your body into a rest and digest state, which improves nutrient absorption and ensures you actually feel satisfied with less food.
So again, it's not about restriction, it's actually experience the food.
Exactly. It turns eating back into nourishment.
It really is all connected, isn't it? The sleep affects the mood affects the food affects the energy. But it's easy to get overwhelmed. We've all been there. You start a new routine, and then life happens. You get sick, work explodes, and you fall off the wagon.
And this is the final and maybe the most important section, the long game.
The sustainability piece.
The source talks about something called the abstinence violation effect. It's that moment you eat one cookie, break your diet, and then think, well, I've ruined it now. Might as well eat the whole box.
The what the hell effect. I know it well.
It's binary thinking. You're either on the wagon or off. The blueprint argues for a dial approach, not a switch. If you're operating at 80% and you drop to 10% for a week, you don't smash the dial. You just turn it back up when you can.
They mention self-compassion here, which some people might dismiss as being soft, but they say it's actually a performance enhancer.
It is. People who beat themselves up after a lapse are statistically more likely to quit entirely because shame increases cortisol, and cortisol drives comfort seeking. So shame literally drives you back to the behavior you're trying to avoid.
It's another vicious cycle. You feel bad, so you do the bad thing, which makes you feel worse.
Whereas self-compassion, saying, okay, that was a stressful day, I ate a pizza, I'm human, it breaks the loop. It lets you get back to your routine faster.
There's that great phrase they quote, a little of what you fancy does you good.
It's the 80-20 rule. If 80% of your life is whole foods and good sleep and social movement, the other 20% can be cake and doom scrolling. Your body can handle it. Doesn't need perfection, it needs consistency.
So let's try to wrap this up for everyone. We're dismantling the kale sludge model of health.
We are, and we're replacing it with a blueprint designed for human biology, not for robots.
Step 1, respect your sleep physiology. It's not about discipline, it's about light and transition. Swap the screen for a book, maybe some brown noise.
Step 2, mindfulness is just traffic observation. Don't try to stop the thoughts, just step out of the car. Use it to widen that gap between stimulus and response.
Step 3, the virtuous cycle of movement. Stop exercising alone if you hate it. Bundle your physical needs with your social needs. Find your badminton principle.
And step 4, nourish, don't restrict. Eat simple whole foods. Slow down and let your biology actually catch up.
And finally, play the long game. When you slip up, be kind to yourself so you can keep going.
It's a shift from health as a project to health as a practice, something you can actually sustain for decades, not just a few weeks.
Now, before we let you go, we want to leave you with a final thought. We talked a lot about the virtuous cycle, finding where two needs support each other.
The provocative thought for this week is this. Look at your schedule. Find one area where your needs are currently in conflict. Maybe it's productivity versus rest, or saving money versus eating well.
And ask yourself, is there a badminton principle for that conflict? Is there a way to bundle those needs? Can you meal prep with a friend so it becomes social time? Can you take that conference call while you're on a walk?
Find that loop where the healthy choice becomes the easier choice. Because once you stop swimming upstream, you'd be amazed how far you can go.
And that's a deep dive worth taking. Thanks for listening.
Take care, everyone.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, I want to start with a concept that feels almost inescapable if you live in the modern world. I want you to think for a second about the overhead of your life.
Right.
And I don't mean the financial overhead, not the rent, the mortgage, the car payments. I mean the biological overhead.
The physiological tax, that's a good way to put it. The cost of living, but for your body.
Exactly. The hidden tax of simply existing in this high stimulation, urbanized, always-on environment we've all built for ourselves.
Yeah.
We tend to think of health as this, this checklist of things we do. Did I go to the gym? Did I eat the salad? Did I get my steps in?
The active inputs.
Right. But we rarely stop to consider the environment that we are doing those things in and how that environment is silently extracting a cost from us every single hour of the day.
It's the difference between trying to swim upstream versus swimming with the current. I mean, you can have the perfect stroke, the perfect diet, the perfect mindset, but if the current of your environment is fundamentally working against you, you are going to exhaust yourself just trying to stay in place.
You're just treading water, burning energy to go nowhere.
Precisely.
And that is the absolute core theme of the source material we are unpacking today. We're looking at a really fascinating dialogue from the Advanced Learner Studio. Specifically, it's part 2 of their series on the psychology of habits and environment. And it centers on this conversation between two people, Emma and John, and they're dissecting this exact issue, what they call the ecology of the self.
And it is so important to note that this is part 2. Part 1, which, we aren't covering today, apparently dealt with the basics, the really foundational stuff like sleep and diet.
Oh, killers.
The pillars, yes. But what makes part 2 so compelling, I think, is that it moves beyond those basics into the much more subtle stuff. The invisible adjustments, the mental boundaries, the environmental triggers that we don't even realize are shaping our behavior.
It's the software update to the hardware of diet and exercise.
That is a great way to put it. It really is. We are looking at how to optimize the operating system, not just the machine itself.
So what's our mission statement for this deep dive then? If you, the listener, take one thing away from our conversation today, what should it be?
I think the goal is to shift the perspective from health as a chore to health as an ecosystem. That's the key.
I like that. Health is an ecosystem.
Yeah. We want to explore how the external world, the light, the green space, the city sounds, shapes your internal state. And then how your internal mental architecture, your boundaries, your focus, your attention, how that in turn shapes your reality.
It's a two-way street.
It's a feedback loop. And along the way, we are going to look at why you might be suffering from a condition you didn't even know existed, why your water bottle is actually a piece of high-tech psychological equipment, and why saying no might just be the most productive thing you can do all day.
Okay, I'm in. Health is an ecosystem. So let's lay out the roadmap for everyone. We are going to start with the external environment, specifically this concept that you just mentioned, nature deficit disorder.
Which sounds dramatic, I know, but stick with us. It's a really useful idea.
Then we are going to move from the outside world, inside the body. We're going to talk about biofeedback, but not the high-tech kind with, wires and sensors and apps. We're talking about a really low-tech visual check that tells you if your brain is actually functioning at full capacity or just sputtering along.
The hydration equation.
Yeah.
More important than you think.
Then we pivot to the mind. We'll break down the psychology of boundaries, that feeling John talks about, the guilt of no, and then we'll get into why gratitude is actually a neurological tool, not just some, greeting card sentiment.
Right. It's not about toxic positivity. It's about brain training.
And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about the virtuous cycle, how all these pieces fit together, and the very unglamorous reality of preventative maintenance.
It's a full stack review of the human system from the outside in.
Let's jump in. Section 1, the external environment. The source material kicks off with this term, and it's a big one, nature deficit disorder. Now, I hear that and I immediately think, okay, is this a real thing? Is this in the medical books?
And that's the first thing Emma, in the source text, is very careful to clarify. Right out of the gate, she says, look, nature deficit disorder is not a medically recognized diagnosis.
Okay, so you can't get a prescription for it.
Exactly. You can't walk into a doctor's office, get a blood test, and walk out with a diagnosis of nature deficit disorder that your insurance is going to cover. It's not in the DSM-5. It's not a clinical term.
So it's more of a descriptive term then, a framework.
Precisely. But just because it isn't a clinical diagnosis doesn't mean it isn't describing a very, very real phenomenon. The source uses it as a framework for describing the human cost of alienation from nature.
Alienation. That's a strong word.
It is, and I think that word alienation is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. It's not just that we don't see nature enough, it implies we are estranged from something we fundamentally belong to.
As in biologically, evolutionarily.